You're going to think this is a movie script, but it's the 48 hours that completely detonated my life. Tell me honestly, would you have shown any shred of pity to the ex-fiancée who ruined your life, abandoned you when you were at your lowest, and then sent you a final, mocking text that read, "You'll die poor," only for you to receive a call from the Pentagon hours later revealing you were heir to a $156 million fortune? I'm serious. I need to know if I was justified in choosing utter silence and watching her world slowly burn, because that text message, that venomous, final piece of cruelty, was the spark that ignited the most unbelievable twist of fate imaginable. It was the universe telling me that the poverty she wished upon me was about to be replaced by generational wealth, all thanks to a connection to the U.S. military I never even knew existed. The whiplash of going from absolute zero bankrupt, heartbroken and mocked, to inheriting enough money to fund a small country, all in a single evening, is something I am still trying to process. The dissonance between her malice and my sudden, astronomical luck felt like the greatest act of cosmic justice ever written. Let me take you back to the beginning, to a time when I genuinely thought I had a simple, if struggling, future. My name is Andrew, and until 6 months ago, I was on track to marry the woman I thought was my soulmate, Sarah. We had been together for 4 years, engaged for 1, and were planning a modest wedding. We weren't wealthy. In fact, we were the definition of struggling millennials. I was running a small, very volatile tech startup, and Sarah worked as a mid-level project manager. We shared a cramped apartment, a mountain of student debt, and a belief that our hard work would eventually pay off. Sarah, however, had a deep, gnawing insecurity tied to money. She was obsessed with the lifestyles of the people she saw on social media, the luxury vacations, the designer clothes, the effortless wealth. I constantly reassured her that success was coming, but my promises always felt hollow to her, especially when our credit card debt kept creeping up. I loved her, though, and I attributed her intense focus on finances to her ambition and desire for a comfortable life. I tried to ignore the subtle shifts in her attitude, the way her affection seemed to wax and wane depending on the success or failure of my latest business pitch. I rationalized it as stress, telling myself that once the startup finally landed its big funding round, everything would stabilize. I was completely wrong. Sarah wasn't ambitious, she was mercenary. 6 months ago, my world didn't just stumble, it planted into concrete. My startup, which I had poured every penny of my savings, every borrowed dollar, and every late night into, failed spectacularly. It wasn't just a failure. It was a total collapse that left me personally liable for significant debt. The investors pulled out, the venture capitalists stopped returning my calls, and I was staring down the barrel of personal bankruptcy. The emotional toll was immense, but the financial wreckage was absolute. I tried to keep a brave face, but I was devastated. I went home that evening, ready to face the music and lean on Sarah for the emotional support I desperately needed. That support never materialized. Sarah looked at the situation not with sympathy, but with cold, calculated horror. She didn't see a man in need, she saw a sinking ship. Over the next 3 weeks, her affection completely vanished. She stopped touching me, stopped talking about the future, and started making pointed comments about my inability to provide. The final conversation was brutal. She looked at me across our worn kitchen table, her eyes empty of any residual love, and said, "I can't do this, Andrew. I can't be poor. Your ambition was a lie, and now you're just debt. I'm leaving." She was gone within the hour, taking most of the joint savings, what little was left, and leaving me with the bulk of the bills, the defaulted loans, and the shredded remnants of my self-worth. It was the kind of betrayal that hollows you out, leaving you with nothing but a painful, ringing silence where your future used to be. I was officially homeless, staying on a friend's couch, filing for bankruptcy, and fighting a crippling wave of depression. My life had been reduced to a spreadsheet of liabilities and a string of painful goodbyes. I spent the next several months living in a fog. I got a low-wage job just to cover my basic expenses, and every time I saw a picture of Sarah online already dating a man who seemed significantly wealthier, judging by the luxury cars and exotic vacation photos, the wound reopened. I knew she was happy, not because she found love, but because she found stability. The day the court finalized my personal bankruptcy was one of the lowest of my life. I felt like a failure in every sense, professionally, personally, and financially. That very evening, as I sat on my friend's worn couch, staring into the flickering light of the TV, my phone vibrated. It was a text message from an unfamiliar number, but I knew immediately it was her, Sarah. It was a final, parting shot of pure, unadulterated cruelty, a message meant to ensure that even in my defeat, I knew she was victorious. The text was simple, venomous, and cut right to my soul. Asterisk asterisk, you'll die poor, lol. Asterisk asterisk, the callousness of the laughing emoji at the end was the final straw. It didn't make me cry. It ignited a cold, hard rage. It confirmed that her entire relationship with me had been conditional, a cruel investment that, once deemed worthless, she was happy to kick to the curb and mock. I stared at the text for a full hour, the words burned into my retina. I was done with self-pity. I deleted the thread, took a deep breath, and resolved that she was right. I wouldn't die poor. I was going to rebuild my life, even if it took 10 years. I swore that I would never let anyone treat me like a disposable asset again. So that's the lowest point I hit. Publicly ruined, financially destroyed, and given a final, mocking kiss off by the woman who swore to marry me. Before I tell you what decision I made, the choice that completely incinerated my old life and hers, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have texted her back with an angry reply, tried to block the number, or done what I did and just let the venomous words sit there, fueling a cold, future vengeance? It was barely 2 hours later. I was still sitting on that couch, the residual anger simmering in my chest, when the phone rang again. It was an unknown number, and this time the prefix was clearly government or institutional. I answered with a weary, hello. The voice on the other end was formal, precise, and immediately grabbed my attention. Is this Andrew Hayes? This is Colonel Reynolds, calling from the office of the General Counsel at the Department of Defense, Pentagon, Washington, D.C. My mind went blank. The Pentagon? I thought it was some kind of elaborate scam, or maybe a bizarre twist on my failed startup's debt. Colonel Reynolds, sensing my confusion, continued, his voice maintaining its severe formality. Mr. Hayes, we are contacting you regarding the estate of your grandfather, Major General Silas Hayes. Due to the highly classified nature of his work, certain details regarding his passing and subsequent estate distribution were sealed. You have been designated as the sole living heir, and recent administrative changes have allowed us to finally make contact regarding his holdings. My grandfather, the man I had been told my whole life, was a simple, mid-level civil engineer who died years ago. My father had mentioned him rarely, only in vague, dismissive terms. Apparently, everything I knew was a lie. Colonel Reynolds explained that Major General Silas Hayes was not a civil engineer, but a legendary, highly decorated officer and a pioneer in advanced military technology development, working directly for the highest levels of the U.S. government. Due to the sensitive nature of his estate and the classified intellectual property he possessed, his entire fortune had been held in a complex, government-managed trust. This trust was explicitly designed to bypass my father's generation due to documented financial instability, a detail I am now deeply curious about, and mature for the benefit of the next living descendant upon their 30th birthday, a milestone I was set to hit in 3 weeks. The trust contained highly profitable patents, investment holdings, and classified residuals. Colonel Reynolds calmly, professionally, and utterly matter-of-factly dropped the number. My grandfather had left me a consolidated fortune of $156 million. $156 million. The sheer, astronomical reality of the number completely eclipsed the pain of Sarah's text. It was the most bizarre, sudden, and complete reversal of fortune in human history. I had gone from being labeled debt to the sole heir of an 8-figure military fortune in the span of a single evening, all because a man I never knew was secretly a national asset. I spent the next 2 days in a blur. Colonel Reynolds arranged for me to meet with an elite team of estate lawyers and wealth managers in a secure, nondescript office building. They explained the complexities, the tax implications, and the confidentiality agreements. They were discreet, serious, and efficient. I was suddenly not just rich. I was a government-vetted, extremely wealthy person connected to national security secrets. My identity as Andrew the failed startup guy had been vaporized, replaced by Andrew Hayes, sole beneficiary of the Hayes Military Trust. My first, overwhelming thought was of Sarah's text. You'll die poor. The irony was a cosmic sledgehammer. She had abandoned the ship moments before it was revealed the ship was actually a nuclear submarine carrying gold bullion. I didn't want the money to fix my old life. I wanted it to erase it. I instructed the legal team to proceed with maximum discretion. I paid off every single cent of my personal debt, not gradually, but instantly, settling my bankruptcy case overnight. I bought my friend's couch and his apartment, eventually, securing my housing. The final, most satisfying decision was what I did regarding Sarah. I knew she would eventually find out. Money that large doesn't stay hidden forever, especially when it involves probate and public records, even if they're sealed. But I wanted the news to hit her not through me, but through the shock of the outside world, like a public execution. I completely cut off all communication. I changed my number, wiped my social media presence, and moved into a new, secure penthouse apartment the lawyers secured for me. I didn't text back. I didn't confront her. I didn't send a single reply. I simply disappeared from her life as the poor failure she knew. The news broke quietly several weeks later, first in obscure legal journals and then quickly exploding into local business news. The massive, secret Hayes Trust Fund had been activated, naming a local young heir. The papers couldn't get all the details right, but the $156 million figure was accurate. I later heard from my old friend that Sarah, upon seeing the news, went into a total meltdown. The sheer, staggering magnitude of the wealth she had tossed away, not for a lack of love, but for a lack of current funds, was too much for her mercenary logic to handle. She tried everything to contact me. She showed up at my old friend's apartment begging for my new number, claiming the text was a terrible joke, and that she always loved me. She even tried messaging my new wealth manager, claiming she was my dearly beloved fiancée. My lawyers issued a simple, polite, but firm cease and desist letter. I kept the original text message screenshot, not as a reminder of my pain, but as a trophy of her colossal error in judgment. The consequences for Sarah were total. The wealthy man she had quickly moved on to, upon learning of the public scandal and seeing her desperation and blatant opportunism, dumped her. She lost her job due to the distracting drama she brought to the office. Her decision to abandon me had not only cost her $156 million, but it had effectively ruined her reputation and stability. The cosmic irony was complete. She had textually condemned me to poverty, only to watch her own carefully constructed, money-driven life crumble while I was launched into unimaginable wealth. I used the money to create a venture capital fund dedicated to helping smart, ethical people whose startups, like mine, deserved a second chance. I am now rebuilding my life on a foundation of integrity and genuine human connection. The money didn't buy me happiness, but it bought me freedom from judgment and the immense satisfaction of knowing I survived the worst betrayal and watched the betrayer suffer the ultimate, self-inflicted consequence. So, tell me, was I wrong to use the $156 million shield to completely disappear, refusing to even acknowledge Sarah's desperate pleas, allowing her to fully absorb the catastrophic financial mistake she made? Was my silence the ultimate, justified revenge against her "you'll die poor" text, or should I have been the bigger person and simply moved on without making her watch the fortune she missed? Let me know your final, honest thoughts in the comments below. Like this video if you believe in cosmic justice. Subscribe to the channel for more shocking, true stories like this, and share your final thoughts on this whole unbelievable mess in the comments section. I'll see you all in the next story.